Solve by completing the square. 3x squared minus 10x plus 5 equals 0. We first move the constant to the other side of the equation. So we now have 3x squared minus 10x is equal to negative 5. Our next step is to group our x's. Very important for later on when we're going to be working with both x and y. Our next step is to factor out the leading coefficient. This is where things are going to get interesting. We will have our x squared minus 3 times what number is 10? Essentially we're taking this 10 and dividing it by this coefficient that we've factored out, x, and this is still equal to negative 5. Negative 5 is not being affected by anything we're doing yet. Our next step is to try and factor out or take out that exponent 2. So we have 3. We bring down the x, not the exponent. We bring down that subtraction sign, and then we have half of this coefficient. That might be a little hard to do. Let's go here to the side of our paper. Half of 10 thirds. Well, let's do some reducing here. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 10 5 times. So that would give us 5 thirds. So in here we have 5 thirds. You still need to be extremely careful because this is no longer equal to negative 5. We must take this negative 5 thirds and square it, which would be 25 ninths, and multiply that by 3. And that would be 25 thirds. So now we're supposed to add these two numbers, but they don't have a common denominator. So let's go off here to the side of our paper. Negative 5 times common denominator would be 3 over 3, plus 25 thirds. Negative 15 thirds plus 25 thirds is 10 thirds. So on this side of the equation we have 10 thirds. And we have 3 times x minus 5 thirds squared equals 10 thirds. Now we're ready to try and solve for x and get x alone. We can multiply both sides of the equation by 1/3. We have x minus 5 thirds squared is equal to 10 ninths. Still solving for x, we would take the square root of both sides. But when you take the square root, you write plus or minus. X minus 5 thirds is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. But what is the square root of 9? That's right, it's 3. Our last step, in order to get x alone, we would add 5 thirds to both sides of the equation. And we would then have x is equal to positive 5 over 3 plus or minus the square root of 10 over 3. So we could just extend that fraction bar. 5 plus or minus the square root of 10 all over 3. Now although the square root of 10 breaks down 2 times 5, there's nothing you can take out of the radical. So this is the simplified answer for the problem.